Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, I know, in Australia and other parts of the world where people are watching us here. This is a really special moment. When Zoe messaged me the other day, and it feels like just a few days ago, and said, I've got this idea, let's do this thing. I'm like, okay, how do we do this? She's like, well, I don't know, let's do it. So we contacted Annie here at the Lynn Hall in Minneapolis, and she was like an instant text response, of course we'll do this, let's make this thing happen. So before we knew it, I think within 24 hours we'd raised $16,000. Like, that's unbelievable, which just shows A, how many people really believe in doing this, and B, how many people love Zoe, which is not hard. And but Henry will let us, her son will let us know if that's true. Has his moments, I'm sure. It's really such an honour to be here helping Zoe. I mean, apart from being a brilliantly talented neighbour and friend, this is super important. You know, what better thing to do than come around food as humans, especially cake. We love cake. So the challenge is, though, there's a whole lot of people in Ukraine who can't do that. They can't get to their kitchens. They can't get around cake. And so what better thing to do than to raise some money to send to World Central Kitchen to give them some food, to feed them, to nourish them, to sort of give them that little semblance of humanity, which I think is really important in times like this. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the reins over to Zoe. Enjoy. Your image, as I said, will be on streaming live now on YouTube, along with our other cast. So have a wonderful time. Thanks, Zoe.
Yeah, thank you. The one other thing, thank you, Heath, is that because we're recording this to send out to a bunch of other people later, we're going to try to collect all the questions. So there'll be times that I'll stop in between and ask you to share your questions. Unless I've just gone off the rails and like it's so unclear that you need to stop me, totally do it, and that might happen. But otherwise, really quickly, I just want to tell you what we're making. I'm doing a Ukrainian honey cake. I didn't realize until I started researching Ukraine and their food and cake in particular, that they were the #1 producer of honey in the world. I did not know that. Honey is one of the things that I love most. I love baking with it. My dad here has always kept bees, and we've always had honey. And we have beautiful local honeys here, but I figured doing something that is so, purely from that culture would be really great. And then also, the sunflower is their national flower. So I figured I'd incorporate honey and sunflowers and cake and all the things that I love in order to do something to give back here in Minnesota, because I'm not there. A friend of mine just landed in Poland and is actually going to work with World Central Kitchen, who have lots and lots of people on the ground in Ukraine, in Poland, all over the world really. And they go, these are all chefs, and they go and they cook and they do the work that needs to be done. And it's incredible. I can't be there. A lot of people can't be there, but we can do this, and we can send them funds because it's not free to get the food together. So we're going to bake a cake. The honey cake is based on a recipe from my book, but I altered it because I did some research, and this cake is so unique in the way that it's made and the way that the honey is incorporated into it, and it's super fascinating and something that I hadn't ever done before, which in a 30-year baking career, those words don't stack up that often anymore. And so it's super fascinating to me. One of the things is the kind of honey that you use is going to make a difference. So like if you use a really mild honey, it's going to have a much more subtle flavor to it. But then you could also use like a super intense buckwheat honey that has like this almost muskiness to it, earthiness to it, nuttiness to it, and that's going to change the color, because look at the difference. I don't know. I mean, just look at the difference in these two honeys. The flavor is equally as different. So first thing I'm going to do, because I am building, well, you saw pictures of that cake. We're going to do the whole thing right now, I hope. And there's people who sent me photos of all their mise en place in front of them at home who are going to be baking in real time. So I hope I get my pacing right for you. And I can't wait to see the pictures. So the first thing that we're going to do is deal with our honey. And it's interesting because what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook it. This honey is already liquefied. You know, some honey will come crystallized, like this one is just hard and crystallized. One thing to keep in mind is that if you're using raw honey, we do have to cook it, and we're going to bake it. And so all of the properties that you get from using raw honey are going to be slightly negated because you have to cook it for this purpose. So just put your honey in the pot. We're going to heat that up just to a really, really gentle simmer on the stove over here. I'm assuming that Heath can get a visual. Yeah, okay, great. Great. I can't see what you see, so let me, just for the time being, I don't know if moving this will make a difference. Can you see up there? Is that, oh no, you can't. Okay, got it. I'm just gonna put this here. Okay, so all I need to do is get this to a very gentle simmer. I don't need it to be rolling boil. I need it to be more than just melted. So just once it starts to bubble around the edges, I'm all set and ready to go. The next thing that I have is a little bit of baking soda. And the baking soda will react to the honey. If you've ever made like peanut brittle, when you melt down the sugar and then you add the baking soda and it foams up, it does the same thing. And I think I'm gonna make this up, like everything that comes out of my mouth right now is made up. But I think based on what I know about food science, not only is it going to change the flavor of the honey once the baking soda hits it, because baking soda is an alkaline, it's going to react to the acid. Honey is really, really acidic. You don't think of honey as being acidic, but it's really, really acidic. So there it goes. So it's gonna react to the acid in the honey and do this sort of explosion thing, I hope, now that I've built it up so much. But it also is going to reduce the amount of acid in the honey. So it's going to sort of neutralize it so that when we bake with it, the acids in the honey won't make our cake overflow in the pan. That was just a tiny bit of like food science geekiness I had to go for, just because I have you all hostage. I love this stuff, so you'll have to bear with me. Okay, so in goes our baking powder, or baking soda. Can you see in the pan, Heath? No. Wait, if I bring it here, can you? Oh. Where is the center? The. Ah! Yay! Okay, so I'm going to. I just want to cook this. Okay, so can you see how sort of like it lightened up and it got frothy and light? I'm just going until this basically turns back to the color of honey. So it's going to caramelize just a little bit. Then I'm going to take it off of the heat. It doesn't actually take that long. It's going to get sort of like, see that? See how it's sort of streaky with that color under there? I'm going to take it off of the heat because I don't want it to go too far, but I want it to get to that like honey caramel color, and then take it off. And then I'm going to put this into a bowl to cool off. So I want to get that sort of like caramelized flavor to it. I also want to neutralize the acids in the honey. And it's just super cool. So that's why I did it. Okay, so I'm just going to stir this until the whole thing turns that sort of honey color. It's going to continue to darken as I let it cool. If you go too far with this, the honey will actually turn red. So if you're doing this at home and your honey turns red, you've gone too far. I was super careful not to do that, so I don't exactly know what the effects are, like what the flavor is. So you might want to try it to let me know what happens. It might turn your cake red. It may taste terrible. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but it does sound like a neat experiment. Okay, so this just goes into a bowl. We're going to save this and fold it in later for our flavor. And now I'm going to get my mixer back. Before I start mixing, the first thing that I always do is prepare my pans. This cake is traditionally made in many, 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 many layers, which requires many, many, many pans. I did try doing it just taking a sheet of parchment and drawing circles and just sort of pushing the batter around, and it just bled out. So you have to have a pan in order to contain it. Otherwise, it just bakes too flat. So I have my mishmash assembly of different pans. I've even done it in a springform pan. So anything, and you can do this in multiples. So I have 5 pans, so I'm going to be able to get this done in 2 goes. I'm spraying it with food spray. Anybody that follows me on Instagram or has my book knows that I usually use butter. It wasn't until I wrote a cake book that I even bought a can of Pam. But after buttering my like 300th pan, I was like, there's got to be a better way. And I'm like, oh, there is, and it's always been there. And I just love the taste of butter, and so I always want to add more to the recipe. And I don't love the taste of Pam, so I've never wanted to add that to my recipe. But it's super convenient, and when you have to butter 9 pans, this can be your friend. Parchment rounds, you can either buy them pre-done or cut them out. These are essential. Don't try this at home without the parchment. Otherwise, your cake may stick and live in that pan for a very long time or just come out in shreds. So you need the parchment. I just butter or spray the bottom, put my paper down in there, press it to whatever it is, the butter or the spray, and then flip it. And that way, both sides are greased. And now my pans, I already did those, so my pans are ready to go. And now I can start mixing. I have 2 kinds of fat in here. I have butter, because I love butter. But then I also have oil because I just liked the way the texture of the cake was when I did both. So I wanted the flavor of the butter, but I don't always love the texture of an all butter cake, especially when you refrigerate it, because the butter then solidifies and gets really hard. And if you add some oil to it, it becomes more tender, and especially when you're refrigerating them, it's a great texture in your cake. So I'm just gonna let that go for a little bit. Make sure all of your ingredients are at room temperature. I think that's maybe the most important thing is, okay, there's there's several most important things. Temperature of your ingredients is one of them. This is the other. This is my best friend. Well, she's my best friend in the kitchen, but this is my second best friend. Because when you weigh things, everything is accurate, everything is consistent, it's easier, it's less fuss. You get the point. So, weigh everything. Once I have my butter, room temperature butter, spun around in there for a second, I'm gonna add my sugar to the butter. Let that spin for a second. This is my third best friend in the, I have to keep track now of all my best friends. This is my third one. Well, my husband too. But he's not always in the kitchen. So these are just my kitchen best friends. So, you made the top 10. So, no, I'm super grateful he's here because I do need to give a shout out to Stephanie, who, if you've done any emailing for this class, you would have met Stephanie, and she works with me. She's basically everything to me. But she couldn't be here today, which I'm sorry you don't get to meet her. But she's one of my best friends in the kitchen too. And I'm just super grateful because this all would not have happened without her. So super, super grateful. Okay, while you're baking, always scrape down because you want to make sure that the butter isn't sticking to the bottom of the bowl. You want to make sure that everything is getting mixed together uniformly. Otherwise, when you put the cake batter into the pan and you go to bake it and there's little bits of butter, those little bits of butter are going to melt while it's baking, and you're going to end up with either holes in your cake batter, in your baked cake, or pools of butter, which doesn't sound that bad, but it's just not the texture you're going for. Okay, let's whip this up. Vanilla, homemade vanilla. If this is my travel size, anybody that follows me on Instagram knows that he drinks bourbon, and I use his bourbon bottles to make my vanilla. And this is, it's true. Did I say something revealing? Okay, so I always add flavorings like vanilla or any kind of extract to the fat. So at this point in the recipe, I'll add whatever flavorings it is. Even if I'm gonna add something like a zest, I wanna add it now because the fat carries flavor. And so you'll just get a more intense flavor of whatever it is if you add it early in with the fat. I'm trying to talk a lot so that I can actually whip this up as long as it needs. The reason that I love to make my own vanilla is the flavor. It does take a long time. So vanilla is just vanilla beans, split open, scraped out, shoved in a bottle, and filled up with vodka and shaken. That's it. That's all it is. But it takes a long time to mature. So I have several bottles that are doing it. The benefit of doing that as opposed to buying, because there's beautiful vanilla extracts out there as long as you do pure, is that you get the flecks of actual vanilla in your recipe, and so the intensity of the flavor is just beautiful. Okay, so I talked enough that my butter is now nice and fluffy, and it's getting to the point where it looks great. So it's no longer, the butter was yellow. Now it has a lot of air whipped into it. And so I know that it's nice and aerated. But there's some clinging to the paddle here that's not whipped in. So I need to get that. And now that I have that all whipped together, I'm going to start to drizzle in my oil. And just it's hard to work a machine that you've had for so long backwards. I keep turning it off when I think I'm turning it on. So just drizzle that in. I don't want to dump it all in because it's hard to get it to emulsify if I just dump it all in at the same time. It's a lot of liquid to go in there, so it's not going to keep that volume that I had, but I don't want it to look curdled, which is why it's so important that your butter be soft so that it can whip up the air and also take in the liquid of the oil. There we go. Okay, so that looks good. Next up are my eggs. Before I do that, I have to scrape it all down again. You just have to get into it. It just has to become your like Zen place because it's so essential. It doesn't usually look this awkward when the machine is sitting in the right spot. I know this is just like not everybody's favorite part of baking is the scraping, but it's really, it has to become your favorite. That's my 5th favorite, I think. Okay. Now my eggs, one at a time, no shell, right? Okay. And we'll just, again, you don't want to put all of your eggs in at one time because it's a lot of liquid to incorporate. So you want to incorporate each one. And turn this, okay. And I'm just gonna mix that together until it's blended in, and then I can add the next one. And then I'm adding a bunch of yolks because I want the richness of it, of the egg. I want the fat from the egg. The yolks do have protein, so they will act as a binder when it's baking, but I also want that richness to it, so I'm adding 4 yolks to it. And one at a time, just until it's combined. If I was home alone and you weren't there watching me and judging, I would have wiped that down like 3 or 4 times in that amount. But it's a bit obsessive, but I am gonna do it.
So we have some questions on the internet.
Oh, okay.
So the first and probably easiest question is, what brand of scale?
Oh, okay. I can, yep. I think that there's a link to it in the recipe. So they should have gotten a link to the recipe, and I have a link directly from it, but it's called My Way. Yes, My Way. And if there isn't a link to it, we will be sure to put one so that they get right to the right one. Okay. And on the kitchen essentials too. Thank you, Sarah. See, it takes a village to know all these things. Okay, when I'm, unless there's something to do with this right now, I'm gonna keep going so I can just get them in the oven, and then we'd have a great spot for more questions. Okay, so I have all of my eggs in there. Now what I'm gonna do is I have sour cream and milk that I wanna put in here. I'm combining them, both of them are at room temperature. If you don't remember to take them out early enough, you can just warm them up slightly. You want them to be at room temperature because you just took all the time to whip all the air into there and have this at room temperature. And if you throw cold milk into the mix, it's just going to seize it all up again. So you want to make sure. I'm realizing as I'm doing this that I did not bring my little baby whisk with me because I did haul all this stuff. I have something for everything because if you've noticed, I love my kitchen equipment. This will do the trick, but it's not quite as elegant. Okay, so just stir that together. So I wanted the richness from the sour cream, but it will also the sour notes of it will temper some of the sweetness as well. So it plays two different roles in there, getting some richness in the cake and also tempering some of the sweet. And what I'm gonna do is I am going to alternate. I have my flour, my baking powder, and my salt all combined in here. I did bring a whisk for this. And I'm gonna whisk it all together. You don't want to combine your dry ingredients without whisking them because you wanna make sure that your leavening agent, in this case, the baking powder, is distributed well, because that's gonna make your cakes rise evenly, especially when we're dividing it into 9 pans. And also because you do not want someone, especially when you're adding baking soda, to get a mouthful of baking soda because they will not be impressed. And I've done it, so trust me. Okay, so I'm gonna alternate. We always do flour, liquid, yeah, we end with flour. I just totally lost track of my whole brain right there. That's hilarious. Okay, so 1/3 of our dry ingredient. So I have 5 mixers at home, again, because I have a problem. And some of them, when you turn them on, they just go from like 0 to 100. And so anytime you add flour, I just put up a video on Instagram like a week ago of just like this white cloud in my kitchen of flour. And I swear I had only put it on the first one. So just be careful when you're adding your flour. And then half of my very chunky milk mixture. Well, this is the difference between a live, like, YouTube Zoom situation and TV. Like, I would not put chunky, they would not let me put chunky milk situations on the show. But, so you're getting more of the real Zoe. Okay, scraping, because we want to, again, always make sure that the batter is the same consistency throughout. So we don't want any flour sticking to the bottom. We don't want any butter sticking to the paddle. We want it all to be super even and smooth and beautiful. And that looks pretty good. Okay, so we did flour, liquid. We're back to our flour. So 1/3 more. We always want to end with the flour because that's going to bring it all together. It's going to sort of like emulsify the whole thing. Again, on low. This one behaves itself very well. I don't usually wear it. Sometimes if I'm doing a big batch, I'll wrap it in plastic wrap if I know it's gonna like poof out of there. So you just kind of have to know your machine as to whether or not you have to protect yourself. And then that's, okay, so we're almost there, almost there. Just until it incorporates. We don't want to overmix it. We are using all-purpose flour, and all-purpose flour has a lot of protein in it. And if you overmix a cake that has all-purpose flour, it can come out tough. So you really just want to be mixing until it all comes together. Okay, I can't do it. Did you see? I almost did. I almost went rogue and just like went for it, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Couldn't. Okay. But did you see all that flour that fell? Can you see in there? Oh, good, good. Okay. But oh, good. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Heath. Yeah, so you saw that flour fall off the paddle when I did that, so it's a good thing I didn't just go off script there. Okay, and then my last bit of flour, and then we are ready to get this stuff into the oven. Okay. What did I just say about not overmixing it? I know, you were about to leap out of your seat to turn it off. It does. It takes a village to get these cakes done properly. Okay, so this is the fun part. I mean, and I mean that literally. I don't mean it sarcastically, which with me is a 50-50 chance. But so in order to get all of the layers exactly the same, I determined that you need, it's in here somewhere, 150 grams of the batter, which turned out to be 3/4 of a cup. So if you don't have, or you can totally eyeball it. And if one layer is a little bit thicker than the next, you do have to look in the oven and make sure they're baking at the same rate. But this is so cool, right? I mean, you can just throw your pan onto your scale. Can you see that? Am I in the wrong spot for it? Let me know. Oh, this is, okay, thank you. Okay, so, but wait, I almost missed the most important part. It's like, how do I get this off here? Okay, I'm gonna get rid of this first. That can just live right there. I almost forgot the honey. That's the whole reason you guys showed up, was for the honey. Okay, so we got to get that in here. Fold in any flour that might be stuck to our paddle. Oh, you'll notice that I'm using this paddle that has the rubber scrapers on it. It doesn't eliminate, obviously, the need to be scraping down the bowl, but man, does it help. Thank you. It really, really reduces how much you have to scrape when you have those. And even if your mixer doesn't come with one, they have ones that you can buy for just about any kind of machine. This is the Breville machine, and it came with it. Okay, so here's my honey. It's cooled down. I'm just gonna fold it all together. You can see that it darkened. Can you see? Okay, you can see that it darkened as it sat there. And now I'm going to add that back into my batter and just fold it. I'm just going to do that with the rubber spatula, not because I forgot about it, but because I don't want to overwork the flour, and two things can be true. So just fold that in. So I'm going along the side and up through the center to fold them all together until I don't see any streaks left. And I totally just mesmerized myself looking into the bowl. It's like, you know you're in the right career when like, you're so fascinated by what you're doing. So funny. It's embarrassing. Okay, so now I actually managed to get the honey into the honey cake. That's perfect. Great. Okay, so all I have to do, and this is, okay, so I have my pan on my scale. I turn the scale on. As you can see, they're all different sizes. 150 grams. I can read this upside down and backwards. What do we got? 120? Yep. Oop, oop, oop. What do we got? 154. Okay. Okay, I did that one that way. Oh, yeah. Okay, good. That's one. I'm going to turn it this way. I think you get the point. Okay, but the one thing I did want to show you is that before I do the next one, I need to tare it, which just means zero it out, which I didn't actually accomplish. Okay, there we go. So you need to make sure that before you add the next one that you're accounting for the weight of the pan itself. Okay, so, whoop. Or, like I said, you can do this in a measuring cup. It's about 3/4 of a cup. Or you can be way less anal retentive and just eyeball it. But I can't bring myself to do it. I just can't. So you're going to have to just watch as I go. But Graham, you can ask me the questions.
Okay. We have a lot of questions
Oh.
about the size of the pan.
Oh, yes, thank you. I can't believe I didn't talk about the size of the pan. These are 8-inch pans. And if you do this in a 9-inch pan, you're not going to get as many layers, but you can absolutely do it. If you do it in a 6-inch pan, you're going to get many more layers, and so it's going to be like a cat in the hat. You may have a hard time like keeping it upright. Yeah, so 8-inch pans. I like the size. I like just aesthetically the way that it looks in an 8-inch size. I think it has like good proportions to it, but it's certainly not going to taste any different. So you can do it in whatever size you want. But it will affect the baking time a little bit.
Where do you get buckwheat honey?
That's a good question. It's a lot of sort of locally sourced honey companies will have it, or they'll have something similar to it, whatever's like a local version of it, but just like some dark, rich honey. Okay, let me get back to this and then we can answer some more. This is a baby offset spatula, and this will be your best friend for spreading this out evenly because you want this to go in to be all the layers to be even before you put them in. You can do this with the back of a spoon. or your rubber spatula, but this is just slick. Just gets the job done really easily. So just spread it out. You want this as thin and as even. The thinness is determined by how much you put in there. The evenness will matter because then they'll bake evenly. So just keep going. The high-sided ones are definitely more challenging, but you'll get there. Okay, so just spread this around. And then because they're so thin, these only will bake for about 10 minutes, 10, 12 minutes. This is going to be super interesting because I only bake in electric ovens at home, and they have gas oven here. So I'm going to have to keep an eye on it. Also, with any oven, you want to have an oven thermometer, an independent oven thermometer, to make sure that it's baking true to temp, which I do not have now that I've said it. And so we're just going to have to see. So for the first batch, we'll keep a close eye on them and see. The other thing that I'm going to do before I put them in the oven, I've spread them thin, but now I have to thwack the pan on the counter, so it's a little loud. This way, the batter will spread evenly, and I'll get up any big air bubbles that might have worked themselves into it. Okay, so into the oven we go. I've got 2 of them here, so I can bake all at the same time. When I did this at home, I was able to do this on multiple racks. And so when you're doing that, hold on one second. Okay, so do you want to just tell me when we're at 10 minutes? Thank you. It takes a village for sure. Okay, so, because we don't want burnt cake. When you're doing this at home, if you have to do it on multiple racks, just make sure after I would say 8 minutes in the oven for something this thin, that you go in and rotate the racks, because the cakes on the top are going to insulate the top of the bottom cakes, and the bottoms will get really caramelized, and so you want to just make sure that you're rotating the cakes in the oven. Okay, so while we're doing that, I am going to, do you have any more questions?
Sure.
Oh.
We have a lot of questions about making vanilla.
Oh. Can you put a link in the live chat to my, is that a thing? You just looked at me like.
No,
no, I can't.
Stephanie's actually lurking.
Oh, Stephanie is going to do it. Okay, great. Perfect. I love that.
We'll add that.
Stephanie is lurking. Otherwise known as she's awesome.
And then, does the brand of flour matter?
Oh, that's a great question. I love this. Okay, so yes. So like I said, I used all-purpose flour, and different brands of all-purpose flour have different amounts of protein. This person just fed right into my geeky, maybe it was Steph, because she just knew I would want to go there. So if you're using a Golden Medal or a Pillsbury, they have about a 10% protein to them. So it's what we'll just call an average protein amount, which is what I test most of my recipes with. If you use a King Arthur flour, that has a higher protein content, and so sometimes if you find that a cake is a little tougher than you wanted, or a cookie is a little bit drier than you expected it would be, reduce with King Arthur flour, reduce by about a tablespoon per cup the amount of flour because it just has a higher protein, and when the protein from flour reacts with water, it creates gluten, and that's what creates the structure, but also the toughness in some recipes. So yes, it can affect it.
Well, that's it for now.
Oh, good. Okay, perfect. How long do we have on that?
About 7 minutes.
Oh, okay. So I am going to actually,
We have one more question.
Oh.
What's going on with the extra batter?
nothing until those come out of the oven, because this is the thing, is that most people, unless you have an in-home bakery I need to know about, most people do not have 9 pans at their disposal to do this all in one fell swoop. And so this batter will just hang out right here until we can free it up, which is, oh, that's another thing. I did not bring a cake rack, but I think there might be something in here that we can make work for that. I'm just trying to decide if I'm going to move on to the buttercream, but I think I'll just wait. So do any of you have questions? Yeah. Sarah, do you want to, just so everybody can hear? This is Sarah. She also works with me.
I don't know.
Is it working?
Hello? Hello?
Oh, can you hear?
Oh,
Oh, great. Perfect.
Oh, she's gonna pass it to me. I was curious, why wouldn't you use the same height pan? I noticed you had some that were taller.
Yes.
I mean,
well,
is there a reason? Or?
yes, because that's what I own.
Okay.
Otherwise, yes, absolutely. If I had a bunch of the lower ones, I would have definitely gone with that. But this is what I have. And I have them because some of the cakes that I make, I want to bake them. Like sometimes what I'll do is I'll bake a cake, and you could actually do that with this, is you could bake a really tall cake and then cut the layers.
Does it cook the same?
No, it's going to take a lot longer to cook.
In the taller one?
Yep, yep. If you bake this thicker, and in fact, I had someone.
No, just the same, I mean the pans that you did.
Oh yeah, no, that'll
So
bake the
they'll
same.
be the
As
same.
long as you have the same amount of batter in each one, they should bake. The only time that might be slightly different is actually not in the size of the pan, but the color of it. Because darker pans conduct heat at a greater rate than lighter pans, and so they might actually bake faster. Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, sure.
Anyone else?
What kind of oil did you use?
Oh, just vegetable oil, canola oil, avocado oil, even olive oil, but that'll have a slightly more assertive flavor. I personally love it in cakes, but not everybody does. And I like it super fruity, but yes, I would say any oil that you typically bake with is the one will work. Yeah.
Avocado.
Yeah, you can totally use it.
Is there an advantage to doing each layer separately? Does it caramelize the top and bottom, the sides?
Yeah, it's a good question. Did everybody hear that? Okay, so yes, and it will caramelize the top and bottom of them, so you will get that, and that will affect not only the flavor, but also what it looks like. But it's also more uniform. So when you're cutting into it, every layer is going to be the same in terms of thickness. So it's just easier to control that. When you're cutting it with a knife, I've done thousands of cakes, and I'm still couldn't get them as precise as this when we're talking about such a thin cake. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty good at cutting it in half, but when I want each one of these 9 layers to be precise, then it's an advantage to do them separately. But having said all of that, you could totally do it. Like bake even like 3 thicker ones and cut them into 3 layers each. yeah. This was just one, it was an interesting method and traditional to this cake, and so I figured I would do it. Yeah, and it's a little bit different.
Here, I'll bring the thing a little further back. Back to your flour
Yeah,
advice.
yeah.
Do you have a gluten-free flour that
Oh,
you
I do. Okay, so it's so interesting because for cakes, I find a lot of the sort of, did you just say it's ready? No. Oh, great. Okay. Okay. So I'll answer this and then I'll come back to yours. For cakes and cookies, I find lots of them work. Cup for Cup, King Arthur's brand, Bob's Red Mill, almost all of them work really well. The place where I have a Namaste is another one, like endless work for cakes. Where I run into problems with gluten-free flour is for bread. And that one, the only one that I've found, I have a bread book series as well, and the only one that I found that even comes remotely close to the mixture I make myself is called Better Batter, and it's actually really good for cakes as well. But yeah, you could definitely try it. I would try, whenever I'm substituting anything in a recipe, I always recommend to do a smaller batch, just so that you know that you love the results. Otherwise, you've gone through, it's the same amount of work, but at least, especially with gluten-free flours, they're expensive. So it's nice to just do a small batch and make sure that you love it. Okay, go. Let's check them. Oh, yep, okay. That one needs a minute. And this one is almost done. And what? Will this work? Yes. Except I'll need 2. Okay, so how many of you bake in electric ovens? Oh, so most of you are in gas, huh? Interesting. Interesting. I find, so gas is less predictable because of the way that it keeps sort of regulating itself. It's also challenging because of the way that it vents the heat, and it tends to be a more moist environment, which is what I've heard is awesome for like meat. My children will attest to the fact that they rarely get dinner, so bread and pie and cake is always there for their taking, but yeah. So anyway, this is a bit of an experiment. Okay, so this side looks good. Yes, yes. Okay, so this looks good. Thank you. Yes, this is perfect. Thanks. We are using oven racks for our cooling racks because you got to get creative. It's what? That's fine, that's fine. Sloped is good. Okay. And this one actually looks pretty good too. Can you see into those pans? Okay. That one needs another second. And that one looks pretty good too. So that one needed another second. Typically, what I would do is let them cool completely. Before I wrench them out of those pans. But I need the pans, so I'm going to do exactly that. Okay, so what I'm going for here, because every single oven is different, and so the timing, even though every time you see a recipe and it gives you a time, it's a suggestion because they don't know your oven necessarily, so you might have to, I always say check a few minutes early because you don't know if your oven runs hot. My oven just recently started doing this bizarre thing. When I set it to 350 degrees, it goes to 600, which means it only wants to make pizza. So it's not a great development. And so I'm in the market for a new one. But so just saying that the timing may need to get adjusted for your oven. But they should be golden on the top. They can be just slightly coming away from the sides, and set. If I touch this, they feel set. Now, this is the dicey part because I have to reach in here. This is why you want that parchment under there, because I'm going to take the parchment and I'm going to slide it out so that I'm now. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. This is why in the beginning I said you can't do this without the parchment. You could try to flip them out of here, but because they're so warm still, they're super, super fragile. Like you wouldn't typically ever do this, to flip it out of the pan before it's cooled, because the cake itself is so fragile. But that's why I'm using the parchment as like a little sling, or that way I can get it out of here and then reuse these pans. I did go ahead and buy a couple extra pans so you wouldn't be sitting here for 4 days watching me just bake the cake layers. If you only have a few or two, the cake batter is fine to just sit here and wait for you to do it. It's going to take a while, but you want to be able to slip these out of here as fast as possible. So I'm just going around the edge to release the cake a little bit so that. No, I grabbed it. Thank you, though. That would have been bad. Yes.
Because it's such a specialty cake with 9 layers, there's no reason you couldn't buy one of the tinfoil pans, right? 9 inch.
Okay, this is a good question. He's asking about the foil pans. Absolutely, foil would work. The thing is that they're not as sturdy. So they don't, and the weird thing is that this doesn't seem like it's that thick a gauge of metal, but it conducts heat better than that. So you might have some hot spots. That's not actually the issue. The issue with those foil pans and old-fashioned pans in general, you'll notice, and these are hot, that they're straight-sided. Old-fashioned pans are shaped like this because they're easier to stack. Like this is a nightmare at my house for storage to try to stack these things. But I like them because they're straight up and down. The foil pans and older pans are shaped like this, and so you always have that edge. Okay, for something this thin, I'm now trying to think of, is the inner dimension the bottom dimension of that 8 inches or the top? I'm not sure what size.
The top, you can get them to where they're not 90-degree angle, but they're
Yeah.
pretty close.
Yeah, then yes, absolutely. And it's a great idea because then then you could probably do it all in one fell swoop. Okay, speaking of, what? No. That is the beauty of this, is I'm going straight in. I do have more parchment, and I sprayed them enough that I probably don't even have to respray them. And I'm okay if there's a little bit of caramelized bits on the edge. If that's bothering you and you're not doing this in front of 500 people, then you can absolutely wash the pan. And even the one thing that washing the pan will do is cool them off, because I'm about to put my cake batter into hot pans, which is not perfect. But see, you're gonna see that it doesn't always have to be super precise. A couple of these need a little more. That's good. Okay, so let me real quick get these in the oven, and then once these are in, I'm gonna move on to our buttercream. Tear that. And now I need only 4 more layers. I don't need the 5th one. Because of the amount of batter this recipe makes, it only makes 9 layers. If you're weighing it out like this. If you're not, then who knows how many? Who knows how many layers you'll end up with? It'll be like 25 layers later. You're like, it'll never end. Okay. I wish I could just be more free-spirited about this and just pour it in there, but I want this to come out. Whoop. Okay, last one. Hopefully this is going to be just enough. Oh, I didn't tear it. Okay, this is just enough. Oops. See? That worked out perfectly. Luckily, it was the last one. Oh. It's like I love it when I make a big deal out of something and then totally don't do it. Oh, well. But at least you'll do it at home the right way. Okay. All right, so spread these out. Same routine. Jen, was that 10 minutes that they stayed in? Okay. Because when I did it at home, it ended up being closer to 12. So I do think that these ovens, and that's in the one oven that is not 600 degrees. So. I have a pizza oven in my yard, and now I can just use the one in the kitchen to get my pizzas done. Okay. Okay. Okay, back in. Also, the less pans that you have in the oven, the faster it will go. So this will probably be about 10 minutes too. Okay, and because they're so thin, we can start building this almost instantly. It's like with a big, thick cake, it takes a long time for it. Thank you. No. It takes a long time for the layers to cool off enough to build it. Otherwise, you're just going to have like the filling sloshing out of there.
So we have a lot of questions actually about when you can build it.
Oh, okay.
A lot of folks are baking along, and
So amazing.
they're wondering if they want to serve the cake on Wednesday or Friday. Should they fill it now?
Oh, yeah.
And
freeze it.
And freeze it?
Yes, and I will talk about that because as I'm filling it, once I've filled it with the layers, you want to wrap the whole thing up and refrigerate it to set the layers anyway, and that would be the good time. If they're not going to serve it until Friday, for sure freeze it because it's not, the refrigerator won't keep it fresh enough to serve on Friday, but you could absolutely freeze it. In fact, I did, and it's sitting right there. So we are about to find out if it works. Oh, That's good. Okay. Okay, while those are baking, and you will let me know once we're ready there. Oh, I need this again. What do you need? What's going on? Oh, no, that looks, oh, I see this. Yeah, that's all. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to make is my buttercream. In the recipe, I'm skipping over I'm skipping over the filling because I want to wait until all of them are out so that I'm not filling a hot cake. And so I'm going to move on to our buttercream. This recipe, I don't know what this is, so I'm going to assume it's for this. Oops. This recipe is a Swiss meringue buttercream, but it's made with honey instead of sugar. And so we get the same incredible texture, smooth texture of the Swiss meringue buttercream, but the flavor is intensely honey, and there's no sugar in it, which I think is super cool. So typically, okay, so there's something missing here. Egg whites. Ah, there we go. Okay, so typically with a Swiss meringue buttercream, you cook together the egg whites and the sugar together over a double boiler. That's what I need. Here we go. Hot water, yeah. Cook them over a double boiler until the sugar dissolves and liquefies into a syrup. Well, because the honey is already liquefied, I need to use a thermometer to make sure that I'm heating it up because we're not going to cook this other than over the double boiler. And because it has egg whites, we want to make sure that we're cooking it until the egg whites are safe to eat. When you're doing it with sugar, by the time you've liquefied the sugar, you know that you've heated the eggs up to a safe temperature, and so you don't have to use a candy thermometer. I'm not exactly sure where this came from, but I love it. Actually, I knew you were going to say that!
Your best friend.
It is. Well, now I know where it came from. That's hilarious. But it's an excellent one. Have you missed it? Yeah, well, I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. That's hilarious. I will give it back to you someday. That's awesome. So I recommend that you go to your friend's house and shop. That's hilarious. Okay, so my egg whites and my honey go together. I'm just going to stir them until they're incorporated, because if I were to put this over the double boiler, oh, here. No, that's perfect. But I need this boiling here. Here, thank you, I'll keep that. If I were to put the mixture over a double boiler and not incorporate the eggs and the honey together, the eggs will just cook. And so by incorporating them, the eggs can withstand a greater temperature and they're not going to cook. They're just going to stay liquefied. But I don't want to put it on the double boiler until my cakes are out of the oven, because I don't want to just let it sit there, because then we'll just have super sweet scrambled eggs, which just, I know, that's not at all what we're going for. How long do we have there? 4 minutes. Oh, okay. 3.5 minutes. Okay. Yeah, I was going to go for it, but I'm not. I'm like, I could do it. No, I can't. Okay, so we'll just let that sit. Did you ever ask your question? No. Oh, what was your question?
You mentioned that you had to alter the recipes based on the research you did. So I wondered what made this different than the recipe?
Okay, the recipe that's in my book, this is essentially my yellow cake, and so it's just sugar. There's no honey in it at all. And so when I tried a few recipes that I found online. They were similar enough in texture to my yellow cake recipe, but I didn't like them as much. So I just decided to alter my recipe instead. And so I reduced some of the sugar and added the honey, and then did the process with the baking soda. So yeah. So I mean, that's the fun thing about sort of understanding some of the chemistry of how the ingredients go together and play together, is that then you can play with, not that it will stop you from playing with a recipe, but because I used to do it all the time, but my success rate is greater now that I have some understanding of that, so it's fun.
Will this be in your next book?
Oh, well, it won't be in my next book because my next book is cookies. But maybe the next cake book, yes, and it's online. I mean, it's on my website. Okay, so what do we 1.5? Because there's so few pans in these ovens now, and because I just want them to be done, I'm gonna check, but they're not, despite all my wanting. No, they're just not. So they do need that extra minute. Okay, so I'll tell you about double boilers because that's super interesting. But I do have a double boiler set up over here, and it's just a pot of water. That's all I've got. No, it's that all you need is like a 1/2 inch of water at the bottom of that. You don't want like a big pot of water so that your bowl sits on there and is rolling around in it like a boat. You just want the steam from the water to be cooking this. I don't want it to be sitting in the water. I just want the steam. Okay, so maybe I talked enough that it's done. I can talk more. Look at her. She holds a grudge. I'm in so much trouble. It's a really nice one. Where did you get that?
I got that after.
Oh,
It was a cooking class that I took, and I think yeah.
Did you take it from the teacher?
No.
Oh. Because then I thought maybe you were just paying it forward and I could just have it. Okay, these look pretty good. They look pretty good, but they're not done. They're just, that's another excellent question.
Yeah.
We're just gonna make room here. But these are totally cooled off. Did I? Yes, that's right. Okay. Okay, my double boiler is like really good and ready to go. Yes, this one looks done-ish. That looks done enough. This buddy does not. Okay. This one looks good. Once they start pulling away from the sides, even a little bit, you know they're pretty much done. With this, with these cakes, because they're so thin, I didn't use a tester. Typically, I would never take a cake out of the oven without putting a cake tester or a toothpick or something in there to make sure that it was done, because there's nothing worse than doing all that work and then realizing that your cake is underdone, which is another reason that baking times are only suggestions, because it may take even up to another 5-10 minutes if your cake is really wonkadoodle. Okay. Okay. There. Yeah. That one. Okay, now I can turn this off because it's like, can I? Yes. Because it's 32,000 degrees back here. It's the lights and 2 ovens, which is an awesome setup, but warm. Okay, yes. Gold medal. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Okay, there. All of our cakes are out. I didn't burn a single one, thanks to Jen, even though she resents me for the whole thermometer thing. But we'll get through it. We've gotten through me pushing her off boats and taking pictures of her in the water after. She's a great fisher person, and she takes me fishing, and I am a terrible fisher person. So she spends the whole time on the boat putting worms on hooks. And then I dredge up logs and things. And she still shows up, so we're good. We're good, and I'll give it back. Maybe. Okay, so. You what?
He just ordered
Oh, that's nice. Oh.
There's a red one.
Oh, she wants a special color.
Well, that way I'll know if you take it again.
That is awesome. Thank you, Graham. That was very sweet. Aw. See, he's the nice one. I don't know. I don't know what he said, but. Okay. Typically when I do this with sugar, the only way to know that it's melted and ready to go is to feel it between your fingers, because then you can feel if there's any grains of sugar in there. But we're starting with honey, so it's all smoothness all the time. So the only way to do it is with Jen's. Is what?
That's the reason my meringue is not.
Oh, it's not.
It's
Didn't work out.
less than.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's see. We're so close. Oh, yep, we're there. We're there. See, it doesn't take long. Oh, wait. Yep, there it is. There it is. There it is. Okay. One. Get it off there. 141 is where I got that too. Okay, that can go. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Okay, so I had to figure out which bowl goes with which mixer. Okay, this one goes with this mixer. Okay. Okay, this is going to take a minute to, I'm going to need that again, so I'll just hold on to it. This is going to have to whip up nice and thick. I love this whisk attachment. This is the Breville, because this is another thing about recipes, is like when you see a recipe and it says whip the meringue for X number of minutes, but if you have this whisk attachment versus this one, they're gonna whip up at totally different rates. And so I think it's better to describe what it should look like instead of how long it should take, because I mean, these are just two totally different beasts, and I'm in love with this one. I mean, I like this one a lot, but this one I love. Okay. So this I'm just going to turn on high. And we're going to let it whip up. Can you see in there? Okay, great. Thanks, Keith. So we need this meringue to get nice and light and fluffy, but not only that, we need it not to be 140 degrees, because I'm about to put all of this butter in there, and obviously if I put the butter into a hot bowl of meringue, I'm going to end up with honey butter, which doesn't sound terrible, but not what we want to put on our cake. So that has to go. And maybe what I can do, and then I'll come back to it, is put this behind. Oh, you know what? You know what? Maybe I'll do, what time is it? How long do I have?
It's 1:22.
Oh, and we finish at 2?
That's when you finish, I guess.
Okay, we're gonna do it. We are gonna do it, but I'm gonna move this to the back and keep going. Is there a plug over there? Oh, well, if this is the one, I'll do it here. Okay. Okay, no, this is fine. If you want to just keep an eye on this for me. Okay, so we'll just have to, like, that's just our white noise. And I'm going to move on to the filling for the cake and assembling this cake. Because I thought I had plenty of time. It turns out I can talk a lot. So as I unmold these, because they'll cool faster, are there any more questions? Yeah.
Do you have a preference of butter type?
Ooh, okay, good. Yes. Do you want to bring her the mic? Because I heard the first part, got so excited, and then couldn't hear the rest.
Sorry. Like I had accidentally had to use an Irish butter once because it's just what I had. And it was cookies, I think. And boy, did it turn out very different than basic Land O'Lakes unscripted.
Yes. Okay, so if you didn't hear the first part of the question is, does it matter what kind of butter you use, and do I have a preference? And then she went on to talk about Irish butter, and I got all like misty-eyed. I went to, in fact, the last big trip I took was to Ireland to eat butter. Like it was a whole week of eating butter. And it could have been a month. I could have gone and eaten butter for a month. So yes, it makes a difference. So the difference between, like, unless it says European style butter, it's American butter, and it has less butter fat. It has more water and whey in it. In Europe, it's regulated how much butter fat has to be in it in order to even be called butter. Yeah.
What am I looking for?
White and fluffy and not hot. Yeah. It's the not hot that takes a while. Close? Okay, great, perfect. So the reason that when you use a European style butter, especially like in a cookie, your cookies are gonna spread more because it's almost like using oil because it doesn't have as much of the water. This is so geeky. But it doesn't have as much of the water that's going to react to the flour and create gluten and hold it together. so cool. But its deliciousness is so good. You all know Sarah Kiefer's pan-banging cookies? No? You must. You must know this recipe. Just Google it. Sarah Kiefer, the vanilla bean baking blog, pan-banging cookies, and everything else she does, quite frankly, is awesome. But if you use your European-style Irish butter in that cookie, boom, it's awesome. But if you want a cookie, because her cookies are meant to spread, but if you want a cookie that keeps its shape a little bit more, then you want to use something that doesn't have as much butterfat. Having said that, in this recipe, go for all the fat you can possibly get in there. So European-style butter would be awesome, and the taste is incredible. And its Irish butter is amazing, but I just recently had Norwegian butter that was crazy good. And it tastes different. I had a butter tasting. These are the things that I do. But the butter, we had different butters, and depending on the season, they tasted different because of what the cows were eating. It totally blew my mind. And so it's really remarkable, like what the ingredients will do to your recipe, especially in something like a buttercream where there's so much of it and it's kind of all about the butter. So it'd be a great place to play with it. How good?
I think it's good. But then again, you've seen my frosting.
No, it looks awesome. You nailed it. She did a great job. Look at that. Ah, it's so pretty. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I cannot believe I didn't bring a blowtorch. This could be the first time. We might have to just end right here. Check in the cabinet. Look. No, I don't. No, I'm good. Okay, look at that. It's so pretty. And it's like coming out of the thing. Okay, this is our, look at that. I think it's just crazy that you can have egg whites and honey and then create that. Beautiful. And now we are going to deflate the whole thing by adding a bunch of fat to it. So you could totally cover your cake in just this honey meringue. That would be incredible. And then you could use your blowtorch, which I didn't bring. I can't believe I didn't bring it, but I didn't. So, did they just leave to find? Oh my, leave it to Sue. That is hilarious. She will. She'll come back and the blowtorch will be bigger than she is. Okay. So, that door is so funny. Okay, just in case she does find one, I'm going to take a little of this out of here. Do we have a clean bowl?
How big?
Yeah, just little, because I need most of it. Oh, she is out there looking for one. She is hilarious. Yeah, she's got it. She's amazing. Amazing. Look at her, look at her. She can't get through there without having everybody flock to her. Okay, so now, whoops. What's going on here? Oh, there we go. Only you. We're fine. Okay, so as I make my buttercream, I have to tell you about Sue. Because I would not, literally, this is true, I would not be standing here if it were not for Sue Zellickson. She was instrumental in my career. She's a food writer, a food personality, a food gatherer of people. She has Women Who Really Cook organization. She is the grande dame of the food community in Minneapolis. And she would come to the restaurant where I worked and encourage me and teach me, I'm going to cry, and write about me and tell people and put me with people who later were instrumental. So, and she brings me blowtorches in the middle of a demonstration. Thank you. Amazing, amazing. Okay, so I have my meringue. It's beautiful. It is room temperature, not warm. And now I'm gonna add my very room temperature butter to it. My butter is at the perfect temperature. You don't want it cold because otherwise it's gonna just bounce around in there and not incorporate into your meringue. But you don't want it so warm and loosey-goosey that it's not gonna create body in your buttercream. Either way is fixable. Almost nothing will destroy this buttercream. People get so nervous, and I'm about to show you why. But this is perfect, where it's soft enough you can put your fingers in it, but when you hold it up, it doesn't like droop down. Okay, so here, I'm gonna show you. This is why people get scared of buttercream, because we had that beautiful meringue, and then I added the butter to it, and now we just have glop. And people are like, I blew it, I broke it, it'll never come together. And I promise you, by the end, when you put in that last tablespoon of butter, this whole thing will turn into beautiful buttercream. But don't get scared, because it's like the teenage years right there. Are there any teenage? I'm sorry. The teenage years are beautiful, but they're some. I'll stop. I'm just gonna stop. Unsalted, always unsalted. I always bake with unsalted butter. And now my butter is, well, okay, so I take that back. There are some cookie recipes where I like salted butter because I like the intense sweetness mixed with that saltiness. But for the most part, I like to control how much salt is going into my recipe, so I use unsalted butter. Okay, so it's not looking good. Can you see in there? It's really not, this is not looking that encouraging. I did, didn't I? We'll see. I've been wrong before. Oh, that's funny. Whoop, 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 whoop. Okay. We're just going to let that go and see what happens. Did I lose all my confidence there? Okay, and a pinch of salt I want to add to it. And a little bit of vanilla. And maybe 1 more tablespoon of butter. We'll see. And if this happens, it can also be because the meringue wasn't quite cool enough, but it will come together. But because I don't have time to wait, I'm gonna add, oh, here, it is coming, but I am gonna add just 1 more tablespoon. There we go. Okay, now it's happening. while that does its thing, I'm just gonna wipe this bowl, make sure it's all getting in there. Do you see how it's coming together now? It is happening. I promise. I promise. Okay. And now I need to make my filling, and then we're gonna assemble and decorate. Okay, I got this. I'm gonna have like 7 machines going in a minute. I need the clear one, and I have the whisk attachment already. There it goes. Thank you. Woo! That would have been embarrassing. This I just wiped off. I just wiped off the remnants of that white cloud of flour that I talked about before. It was still clinging to this. Okay, this is going, one of the things, since Sue brought the blowtorch, is that if you end up using colder butter and it's not getting as smooth as you want, you can use your blowtorch and blow the bowl to warm it up slightly, and that will bring your buttercream together. That's another great trick if you've frozen your buttercream and you need to re-whip it. You don't want to do it from frozen, but once it's room temperature and you do it and it looks like it's curdled and it's broken apart and it looks like it's separating into liquid and fat and it's a mess, put your blowtorch to your bowl and it'll come right together. I can't hear you. Thank you. Don't do it in your glass bowl. This is why I brought my brilliant son with me, so he could ask the brilliant questions. No, you don't want to do it in your glass bowl, because I don't know if that glass bowl is tempered. That seems like a wrong thing to do. Okay, so the next thing, like they all have their like different mechanisms for doing things. Okay, so what is that? It's edible. Whatever it was edible. Okay. Okay, so now quick, I'm gonna make my filling. This is just heavy whipping cream. The highest fat content you can find is what you want in a whipping cream. It's usually, I think, generally speaking at the store, you can find 5 or 6 grams of fat and you want the 6. Just get as much fat in there as you can. For the flavor and some stability, I'm also adding sour cream to the mix, because this cake is plenty sweet. And then to sweeten it, because we're making a honey cake, I'm gonna add some honey to it. And because I can't make anything without adding vanilla, we're gonna, can you see what I'm up to over there? Okay. Little glug of vanilla. And then this whisk attachment. And then we're just gonna whip this until it starts to come together. Nope. Working backwards is harder than it looks. Okay, when I make whipped cream, I do it on medium speed. I don't throw it up to high, because when you throw it up to high, you're creating huge bubbles. And with your whipped cream, you want teeny, teeny little bubbles, because then it'll be more stable and it'll last longer and it won't droop and weep on you. Okay. So that's gonna sit over, nope, that's gonna sit over here.
So can you omit the sour cream, or can you use yogurt instead?
Yeah, you can use Greek yogurt or creme fraiche, or omit the sour cream all together. It does add a tiny bit of stability to the cream for this, but if you whip your cream properly, you should be fine with just whipped cream. Hi. So glad you're still speaking to me. Get your own show. I know, I do. I have a bunch of her spoons. It's so embarrassing. She has really nice stuff. That's funny. I only live across the street. It's not like she couldn't come and get it. Okay, I want to turn it up. It'll happen, it'll happen. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Oh, while that's going, okay, did you just see what I did right here? I took the parchment paper off the bottom. People, this is super important. Because you don't, for example, want to deliver a wedding cake that has parchment paper between the layers. This is not something you ever want to do. I have never personally done this, but I have worked for a bakery that has done this. Look, it's happening. Patience. Once I see, I've got like so much stuff going on here. Once you see the marks in your cream, I stop it because I don't want to over whip it. There's many things worse than over whipped cream, but it's not great. You just want it to be luscious and beautiful and smooth and silky and just the way you want it. I almost always under whip instead of over whip because you don't want it to get grainy. Okay. Okay, so I finish it up just by hand like this because I want it needs to be stable enough that it's not going to sort of slosh around on here. But I want to make sure that I'm not going to overdo it. So I take it off the machine. And maybe for purposes of drama, I stopped it a little early. But we'll get there. Okay. Okay, but that's good. That's what we want, right? It's still smooth. It's still satiny. It's not, but it's holding its peak, right? And as it sits, it gets stiffer and stiffer and stiffer, so you don't want to overdo it. Okay, so in the instructions that I gave you, I did weigh out the cream as well between the layers. I am not going to do that right now, just because I don't want you all to think I'm just crazy, but I am. So I'm hoping that I'm going to do this just right and have enough cream at the end. Okay, and then again, there's a lot of parchment to remember here. Right? And then as you're stacking and as you're building this, oh, and can I mention that there's nothing that says you couldn't put a little layer of chocolate and maybe some bananas in here, and maybe I did try that and it was awesome. Or that you can't flavor this cream with something else. I am going straight honey today because that was the theme of this, but you could do this same cake with all kinds of fillings. Add lemon. You could even add lemon zest to your cake batter. I just got a really beautiful delivery of passion fruits, and you could put passion fruit in this whipped cream, and really you could go any direction. It doesn't have to just be honey.
About freezing with so you mentioned freezing the cake.
Yes.
So what happens to the whipped cream when it freezes?
Well, we're about to find out. Because it has some stabilizer in it with the sour cream, it actually holds up pretty well. And because it's such a thin layer, like if you were doing a really thick layer, like you did a Victoria sponge, which if I had said that like 5-10 years ago, nobody would know what I'm talking about, but because of the Great British Bake Off, everybody knows what I'm talking about. But it's just like a sponge cake with a super thick layer of cream and berries. That probably wouldn't hold up so well in the freezer. But because these layers are so thin, you can get away with it, I think. I'm about to cut into one that was frozen, so we're going to find out. As you're doing this, once you get some layers together, just look at it and make sure you're not like going this way with your layers, and that it's, I think we're going to be good. I think we're going to be good. If there's any extra, we can just serve it on the side. You don't want to start with one thickness and then start adding, like getting thicker and thicker. You want them all to be even-ish. Even-ish is good. Okay, and you'll see that I'm stopping, well, I'm doing this as fast as I can because I know I'm running out of time. But I'm trying to stop as close to the edge as possible so that my cream isn't like dribbling over the sides. I'm just going right to the edge. I want cream in every single bite. I want to see the cream layer, but I don't want so much cream that it's like bulging out and dribbling down the sides. And that's why we need to make sure that the cream is whipped to the right consistency. Thank you. Okay, I'm good. I got 2 more here. How am I doing on time, Graham?
You're doing okay.
Not great.
He said you can take as much time.
Oh, he did? Okay, he's nice.
He doesn't.
He's so encouraging. Okay. I suppose, oh, is this? Okay. I feel like there's a bit of a glob on this side. Now it's gone. Is there one on that side? Great. Oh, come on. This is why you don't bring your family to these things. Actually, I brought all my family. Okay. All right. So the last layer, pretty good. Okay, because I haven't even gotten to the best part. That's making the sunflowers. I promise, it's not. Okay, the last layer on the top, we don't want to put any whipped cream. We just, ta-da! Ah! We did it! Oh, I know. Thank you. Okay. Let's get this out of our way. What else we got? Okay, so let's get our plate cleaned up. I'm gonna leave the sides exposed because they're pretty, right? You did all of those beautiful layers. We don't want to hide them. Although it might be nice if you wanted to cover it and then have the reveal of cutting into it. Okay, so our buttercream Oh, you know what I need is that spatula back. Yeah, that one. Thank you. Okay. When you let your buttercream sit for any amount of time, it sort of settles and gets air pockets in it. And so you need to, thank you, you need to spin it. I don't want to throw this onto high and whip a ton of air back into it, but I do want to make sure that it's nice and smooth. So while that's going, I'm just going to put a layer of my buttercream on top of the cake as a foundation for all of my flowers. This, the color of your buttercream will be determined by the color of your honey. So this honey, it's definitely not pure white. So if you're going for a pure white, you would want to use a very pale honey or just go with the sugar buttercream. So in the instructions, I say to build these layers and then refrigerate it so that they have time to marry and solidify a little bit and get some structure to them. We don't have, Heath said he has time, but I don't think he has that much time. He'd come storming in here. Okay, so I'm just going to do, this is all going to get covered, so I'm trying not to be a crazy person about getting it totally smooth, but I want it, you know, flat-ish. And then I'm going to pipe a little border around the edge of it to just sort of create a canvas for our flowers. I'm going to use, I'm using these disposable bags, but you can use just like a regular featherweight. I like the featherweight ones. They're nice and thin, but they're reusable. I'm using these so you can see what I'm up to. To get the tip in, I'm just using a star tip. All of the tips that I recommend are in the recipe. So I need to cut a bit off the end. Stick my tip down in there. You want to make sure that quite a bit of the tip is still covered by the plastic so it doesn't just pop out of there. Learned that the hard way. And then the tip just flies off into the distance. I just need, now that I'm looking at this, I think you want to double the buttercream in order to get a ton of flowers. I'm not leaving you with enough buttercream to do that. I always like to make a ton of buttercream to have, oh yes, half of it's there. Thank you, Sue. Yeah, that makes a big difference. Don't leave half of it on the mixer. That's hilarious. Okay, so did you see that? I'll do it again because I have to fill these. But you want to make sure that when you put the stuff in that you have a cuff like this and then unfold it, drag all that down, and then twist. All of the action comes in the twist of it because you're trying to create pressure. Can you see that? If you don't create pressure, the buttercream is just going to come flying out of the top of it instead of out of the bottom where you want it to go. I'm just going to do basically a figure 8 pattern. So I'm doing squeeze up and over and down. And you can do this on a cake turner, but this is just in the wild, so we're going to deal with what I have. So a figure 8, up and over, and then stretch it out. Or you can do them all right close to each other and have a more continuous, this would be called a shell pattern, like that. So either way, whichever does it for you is the right way. And then that can set aside. The one thing about buttercream is it needs to be served at room temperature, because once you chill all that butter, it just tastes hard. It doesn't have as nice a mouthfeel. Okay, so I'm not going to color the buttercream because honestly, that's the thing that takes me the longest, because I go a little like, oh, just a little more of this or that and the other thing. This is my cake decorating toolbox, and I have, these are the colors that I like to use, these like gel colors or the pastes. These are good. If you want like a pastel-y color, then these liquidy ones, although I find these are getting better. It's like I find it used to be you'd have to add the whole bottle to get any color out of it whatsoever, and I find that they're actually getting better. But these are like more intense colors. So, but we already did that, so that we can get you out of here today at some point. Oh, that's the other thing that I need. Okay, so I think I forgot to bring my wax paper. Let's see, what do they have here? What is that? No. It's just like me to go through somebody else's drawers and come out with a really nice thermometer. The truth is, she brought it to my house to make me something and left it there. And I just never told her that she left it there. Oh, I took it? Did I? I don't think so. And that's all she's been doing back there, is thinking about it. Okay, so this is not perfect, but it will work. These are just my parchment cake rounds that I am making into little squarish things. And this is what I'm going to build our flowers on, because I am going to build them on the paper and then either refrigerate or freeze them, and then I can just pick them up and place them on the cake, as opposed to decorating it right on the cake, because then you have to get it right if you do it straight on the cake. Whereas this way you can practice a lot and do the ones that you like and then leave the rest of them. I am going to need the spatula to mix this. No, this one. That's right in front of me. Okay. So you want to, again, make sure it's nice and smooth. And then I'm going to fill them. I have different, here we go. For the center, I have this like fluted star tip that I'm going to fill with the brown to be the center of my sunflower there. Thank you. And again, I'm going to fold that down, fill this up. And then squeeze it all down there. Twist it. And then I have these leaf tips. They look like little bird's beak leaf tips. And you can have as many as you want depending on the colors. So, you know, sunflowers come, my dad is like the king of growing sunflowers. Just ginormous ones and little tiny ones, all different colors to them. So you can go with whatever colors you want. I have the classic yellow, some red there. There was another, and that color. Oh, this is more brown, okay. Okay, yeah, that's cool. This is good, I only need two. No, we're great, thank you. Okay. So this one I have in my bird's beak tip. The other thing that we can do is combine them. So I can take my reddish color here and put this down one side of the bag. Can you see that? Put this down. I recommend that when you do this at home, that you grab a glass of wine or a cup of tea or whatever it does, relaxes you, and don't do it when you're over the class time and trying to do it fast. And then what I'm going to do, and as elegantly as I can, without wearing all of this buttercream, I'm going to put this on the other side so that I get multiple colors. Because, Dad, that would happen in nature, right? That you would have two colors in one sunflower. Well, it's going to happen in this one. Squeeze that down. Okay, now we can start our building. Let me just get this out of the way so it's not distracting. Thank you. Oh, we are fine on time? Okay. So then where's my wine? Right? No. You know she will. She'll come back with like the whole bottle. Okay, so this is a flower nail, and this is what we're gonna build them on. You could do it right on the counter. I just find it's easier to control when you are holding it like this. I might try one on the counter and see if I actually can do it. But you need to be able to turn it. You know, you can do it, but it's just easier to be able to turn it like this. So I'm just going to, in order to anchor the whole situation onto the nail, I'm just going to put a tiny blob of tiny on there and then glue my makeshift. Oh, you know what? I might have some squares in there. I may have hid them in, ta-da! Are there more than that? Yes. See? I hid them in just the spot that I would remember. But this is, I am going to switch, just because they're more elegant looking. But these are made from wax paper. Nothing fancy, just cut them into squares, depending on the size of the sunflower that you want. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brown with that fluted star tip. The trick to working with buttercream is to twist the bag super, super tightly so you're not gripping it. My hands are very warm. It's 3,000 degrees back here with all the lights and everything. I don't want to heat up my buttercream too much, otherwise it's butter. So I just want to twist this as much as I can. And then I'm just going to straight up and down on my paper. I'm going to create just blobs of it. I do need too much coffee today. Just blobs of it in the center. They don't need to be all the same because nature is rarely the same. There's variety there. And then once I have it in the center, I'm going to take my bird's beak. I'll do a bunch of these. And I'm going to hold the bird's beak straight up and down this way, probably at about a 25-degree angle away from my center blob. and I'm just going to squeeze it and do the petals all the way around. I'm trying to connect them. I'm trying to connect the center with the petals, so I want to make sure that they're touching each other. By the time they get, oh, you'll see, I'm going to do another. Can you see if I hold it like this? Yeah. Okay, great. Oh, good, good. Because trying to pipe like this is, it's not as good. So that's the first ring, and then the second one, I'm going to go between the petals and do it slightly more upright. And that will give it some more dimension. And that is it. Beautiful. So simple. And then I'm just going to keep going, and you can do these way ahead of time.
Can you give me, like, what's a week, a month?
Oh, you can do these a month ahead of time and freeze them. And just have them in the freezer, and then when you want to go to decorate the cake, pop them out of the freezer, peel them off of the wax paper, and place them on the cake however you want. Now let's try this one. It's going to take a few with this one for the multiple colors to come through. These are slightly large tips, so I'm making large-ish sunflowers. All of these tips come tiny, tiny. So if you wanted to do this like on cupcakes, or you could do 1 or 2 flowers per cupcake, that would be pretty too. Okay, so I pipe all the way around the edge, and then, oh, here it comes. So that second color will start to come through. Do you see it? It's cute, right? Look at that. I like that one. That one's nice. Okay. And then you just have to have like a piping party. And can you see if I hold it towards me a little bit? Okay, great. Because I can do it faster this way. I can do, oh good, yes, he's brilliant. Okay. Graham, are there any questions I could be answering while I do this?
No.
Great. Do you have any questions?
Could you use non-dairy butter?
Yes, you absolutely can, and in fact, I have.
What kind of non-dairy? Yes.
You can use country crock, plant butter. It's a semi-new product that I just tried. The only problem is that it's salted, and most of them are, I think, for flavor. And so you obviously would need to take all of the salt out of the recipe for that, but it definitely, in terms of texture, it works, and I was quite happy with the flavor. I know I actually just posted a bunch of Passover desserts, and so when I was working at the D'Amico company, I would do almost all of the kosher events, and we had to adapt all of our recipes to non-dairy. So there's a lot of good, and we didn't have a lot of great choices then. There's a lot better choices now. But that was the one I used most recently. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to do a couple more. Do some yellow ones. And then I will assemble it, and we're going to try cutting it.
You do freeze it, how long would you defrost it?
Good question. You can defrost it in the refrigerator like overnight, and then go straight from there, or you can leave it on the counter for, is that one defrosted? I'll tell you exactly how long. Yeah, so about 4.5 hours. No? Oh, 5. Closer to 5. It's definitely closer to 5. Okay. So after I finish here, if anybody wants to come up and see that closer, I think he probably did a great job. Okay, this is one of the tricks to do is get a frozen slab of something that will retain cold. So this is marble. And then when you're going to, see, I did these before, and they're frozen. But then putting it on a frozen, you get more leeway. You don't have to move so fast because this will keep the flowers frozen under there. I use that trick for so many different things. Like if I'm ever doing an ice cream cake or a baked Alaska or whatever, I keep this marble in my, oh no. You are out of control. And I love you so much. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I just need that little offset spatula again. Oh, this one that's covered in the meringue that I'm going to toast for you, Sue. Oh, thank you. Perfect. That is amazing. And this is Lynn Hall. Well, she's not actually Lynn Hall. What is your name?
My name's Cassandra.
Cassandra from the Lynn Hall. Thank you. That was really sweet.
If you need another bottle or anything, you just let me know.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's amazing. Cassandra.
Thank you.
You're all just so nice. Oh my God. Takes a village, and I have the best one. Thank you. So nice. Okay, so because they're chilled, they just slip right off and right onto the cake. Ta-da. Look at that. It's like magic. So, and then you can like rearrange them, pick them up. And that's why I don't want to do it like right on the cake, because once it's there, then you're having to like gouge them off, or it just gets awkward. This is so much easier, right?
So do you place them to make it easiest to cut the cake?
No. Nope, you make it pretty. You take your pictures for Instagram.
Yeah.
And then you cut it very carefully. But once they're room temperature, they're going to cut just like the other buttercream.
Yeah.
Right? No, everything is for Instagram, except for the flavor. The flavor is for us.
When are they going to have smellograms?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But once they're chilled, as long as you've piped the petals right into that base, they all stay together. But that is why you got to do that second layer of petals to really anchor it all together. Look at that, just enough. Yay! Ta-da! There, we did it. We did it. Yes.
Did you note that you created a Peonia cake, which is going to attract lots and lots of monarch butterflies?
Oh, good. See? An extra bonus to the whole thing. Thank you so much for this. I had a blast. I don't know that you were all here when right before we started, we raised over $30,000 to send to World Central Kitchen. You are amazing. Thank you for showing up and doing this, and I hope you bake. And if you do, please tag me on Instagram. I want to see it. I can't wait. And I'm going to cut this, and if you want to try it, you're more than welcome. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. It's awesome. And I have to blowtorch the meringue. Because this has been sitting here a long time and I haven't used it yet. Although I have to say, I don't even know how to use this one. Ah! So you totally could just skip the buttercream, put a meringue on here, and just toast it up. Right? If you had like spikes of it. You could even dye the meringue yellow and brown and create one big sunflower. That would be really pretty. I hope somebody does that and then posts it. Sue points to you. You're the chosen one. Thank you. This was terrific. Thank you.